television had to do with education.
I think maybe I might want to go to college.
But if you ask him today...
You think that'd be okay?
Yeah.
He'd say it's a change for the better.
I think maybe that would be okay.
CNN Headline News, I'm Don Harrison. President Bush poised at this hour to officially launch his campaign for re-election. He's expected to make the announcement in Washington momentarily. Earlier this morning, the president met with members of his cabinet, telling them he feels very confident about his campaign. Vice President Dan Quayle unofficially joining the race today as well. Mr. Bush has said that Quayle will definitely be his running mate. From Washington, the president heads to New Hampshire to crank up his campaign for next Tuesday's primary there. His only Republican opponent, Patrick Buchanan, is already there and campaigning hard and heavy, stepping up his attacks on the president. Yesterday, he invited New Hampshire Republican lawmakers to join his rebellion against Mr. Bush. Today's Boston Herald endorses Buchanan's candidacy, the newspaper urging Granite State voters to send President Bush a message by voting for Buchanan. The paper says that Mr. Bush has betrayed those who voted for him in 1988. Former Senator Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts picking up some steam moving into that New Hampshire primary. He and his Democratic challenger Bill Clinton have reversed positions in the last week, according to a CNN USA Today Gallup tracking poll. 6 days ago, the Arkansas governor was on top with 37%. Now he trails Tsongas by 15 percentage points. The economy is expected to be a major issue in this year's elections, and taxes are figuring prominently on both sides of the political fence. John Holloman has the story.
Democrats and Republicans accuse each other of playing politics with economic recovery. At issue is the president's plan, which Mr. Bush challenged Congress to pass by March 20th.
We got a short-term set of proposals that would be the best medicine for this economy, and they ought to move on it now. Give it a try, and then go into the political dance later on.
We do not have the luxury of time. The president's allies tell us that the March 20th deadline was a gambit, designed as a hurdle the House and Senate could not climb.
The president wants to stimulate the housing industry through a combination of tax credits for first-time buyers and incentives for real estate developers. The president is also pushing a cut in the capital gains tax to encourage investment. The president says his plan would speed recovery without raising taxes.
We shouldn't ask any American, particularly in these economic times, to give more of their money to a system that doesn't spend wisely. And I can't understand how people can talk about stimulating the economy and then raising taxes in the same breath. Just totally counterproductive. And raising taxes is not the way to create jobs and to foster growth.
House Majority Leader Gephardt blasted the Republican plan and its deadline.
The Republicans are now demanding action by a deadline they don't want met, for a program that will not work, for a bill they have changed, paid for by gimmicks we cannot afford, to deal with a recession that didn't exist, to help people that no longer count.
Both sides agree there's a need to jumpstart the faltering economy. And while there's agreement on some of the items in the president's short-term plan, compromise will be needed on how to pay for them. Compromise which at this moment seems pretty far away. John Holloman, CNN at the White House.
President Bush making an election year about-face on the environment. Yesterday, he ordered U.S. companies to stop producing most ozone-destroying chemicals by 1995, 5 years ahead of the timetable set by an international agreement. The White House previously ignored environmentalist demands to move up the target date. But last week, NASA reported alarming levels of ozone-depleting chemicals over North America. The thinning of the ozone allows more ultraviolet radiation to get through to Earth, which can create health problems. Russia calling for a stand-down of nuclear weapons worldwide. At a disarmament conference in Geneva today, Russia's foreign minister said the 5 nuclear powers should take their weapons off alert status to lessen the risks of accident. Earlier this month, Russian President Boris Yeltsin announced deep cuts in his country's nuclear arsenal. Secretary of State James Baker in Azerbaijan today and says U.S. recognition of that former Soviet republic would depend on Azerbaijan's record on human rights and democracy. Yesterday, Baker met with leaders of Moldova before heading to Armenia. his whirlwind tour of the Transcaucasian and Central Asian republics ending in Moscow, where he'll attend arms control talks. British Prime Minister John Major promising to meet again with leaders from Northern Ireland. He put the peace process back on track yesterday, holding talks with officials from the province's 4 major political parties. It was the first time in 16 years that a prime minister has attended the Ulster talks in the wake of a stepped-up Irish Republican Army campaign.
Everyone present was unanimous in condemning terrorist attacks, whatever their source may be. Terrorists who claim to be acting on behalf of one community or the other were, in fact, acting against the interests of all the people in Northern Ireland. That was the unanimous view of everyone attending this meeting.
No one has yet claimed responsibility for a series of bomb blasts last night in Lima, Peru. 2 police officers were killed, 2 injured last night in an attack outside the U.S. ambassador's residence. The ambassador not at home at the time. Police say at least 5 banks and a movie theater were also bombed. The bombings came amid a call by leftist rebels for an armed strike on the Capitol to take place Friday. U.S. intelligence sources reportedly say that Libya is preparing to be attacked by the U.S. Today's Washington Times reports the country is tightening its air defenses. The U.S. and Britain are pressuring Libya to turn over 2 intelligence agents believed responsible for the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103. Wolf Blitzer has more.
Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi is facing a mounting crisis as he tries to deal with U.S. and British allegations that 2 Libyan intelligence agents were responsible for the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103.
There is no question that he's vulnerable to a coup, and that coup would come not from Libyan opposition elements outside the country, but would come from within the Revolutionary Council itself.
Canestraro says there are indications that Gaddafi has split with his nominal number 2, Abdul Salam Jaloud, and that Gaddafi may even have moved his own family to Cairo for safety.
It's one of those precautionary steps that the leadership sometimes takes when they believe that the crisis is at hand.
Other U.S. intelligence sources say they too have received similar reports, but they caution that Gaddafi has proven to be a resilient leader over the years. Still, Canestraro says the indictments of these 2 Libyan agents last November and the mounting pressure for UN sanctions against Libya unless the agents are handed over to the U.S. or Britain may prove to be too much for Gaddafi to handle. Earlier, the former CIA official said the 2 agents may already have been executed in order to silence them, a charge denied by the Libyan judge investigating the case, and a British lawyer who says he saw them in Tripoli Tuesday evening. Whatever the case, the State Department insists the Libyans hand over the agents for a trial and stop supporting terrorism.
And those are the demands that we expect Libya to comply with.
U.S. officials want to keep Gaddafi guessing, but they say another round of military action against him would be a last resort. They believe they can still continue to ratchet up the economic and diplomatic pressure on Libya to comply with the UN resolutions. Wolf Blitzer, CNN, The Pentagon.
Girls are apparently getting cheated on their education in public schools. A study by a university women's group suggests the system is biased in favor of boys. The study found girls get less classroom attention than their male counterparts, and it says boys are more likely than girls to win college scholarships based on standardized tests, even when the girls scored as well or better. The latest study on coffee could perk up Java drinkers. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University say it does not increase the risk of heart disease. That study tracked healthy men who drank 3 8-ounce cups of filtered caffeinated coffee a day. The coffee raised both bad and good cholesterol levels, canceling out any negative effect. Another former patient of Dr. Cecil Jacobson has testified in his fraud and perjury trial. And like the first witness, she claimed the doctor tricked her into believing she was pregnant. The patient said the test by other doctors showed she was not pregnant. If convicted on all counts, Jacobson could spend the rest of his life in prison. Well, the sanity trial of confessed killer Jeffrey Dahmer has moved away from psychiatrist testimony to those who met him over the years. 2 witnesses who testified yesterday had a chance to arrest Dahmer 2 months before he was captured, but they didn't. The 2 former police officers returned a bleeding 14-year-old boy to Dahmer's apartment last summer. They testified that at that time, Dahmer appeared normal and convinced them that the boy was his 19-year-old lover. Prison buildings, a big business in the 80s, but the sagging economy taking its toll on that industry. And that couldn't come at a worse time, as Brian Cabell explains.
In Georgia, 11 new state prisons are now under construction.
Total price tag, about $300 million. In Texas, the price of planned state prisons is $1 billion. The Federal Bureau of Prisons will spend a similar amount. In Florida, a slightly different story. Brand new prisons, but no staff.
We're trying to say to the people, if you want this, you need to help us tell your legislator that you want it.
Governor Lawton Chiles is frustrated because his state has built the institutions but has no money left to operate them. But in other states, the funds to even construct prisons are drying up after a building boom in the 80s. In 1987, 53,000 prison beds were under construction. That jumped to 67,000 in 88 and soared to 113,000 in 89 before dropping to 88,000 beds in 1990. Fiscal 91 figures aren't out yet, but another drop is expected. The state of Georgia, even with its ambitious building program, expects to be short 15,000 beds come the year 2000.
But frankly, with the economy the way it is right now, we don't hold out much hope of being able to build any real enlargement of bed space beyond what's already under construction in the foreseeable future.
Georgia, like many states, has cut prison costs by using inmate labor. But still, the total prison price tag is climbing because more than 1 million Americans are now behind bars, and that population is increasing almost 7% a year.
If our sentencing laws and continue to get tougher, I think the backlog of inmates are going to increase, and there's going to be another big boom in prison and jail construction in the 90s.
But prison officials aren't deluding themselves. An economic upturn is not the answer to an overcrowded, underfunded prison system. Somehow, the United States must stop producing criminals. Currently, it produces and imprisons more per capita than any nation in the world. Brian Cabell, CNN, Atlanta.
Updating our top story, President Bush formally tossing his hat into the ring for the 1992 presidential elections just moments ago. The announcement came in Washington.
And I believe in a peace. And I have an announcement to make. I want to continue serving as your president 4 more years, so from this moment... So from this moment on, I'm a candidate for President of the United States, officially.
No surprise, but it is official. President Bush seeking a re-election. Dollars and Cents News coming up next.
This is CNN Headline News.
Kennedy, the legend.
I suppose really the only 2 dates that most people remember where they were was Pearl Harbor and the death of President Franklin Roosevelt.
Kennedy, the leader.
I support strongly the Constitution. I support strongly the separation of church and state. I believe it's the best arrangement for our society, that I shall continue my devotion to the Constitution and support of it.
Kennedy, the man.
Well, I attended Harvard. I just finished there this June. I'm interested more or less in working sometime in my life for the government, but I haven't really decided as yet.
Life magazine proudly presents what must be considered one of the most comprehensive videos ever produced on the private life of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. This is his story, told in his own words and pictured in film clips, many never before seen by the public, taken from the archives of the Kennedy Library. In addition to these rare moments of film, Life magazine has searched its own picture archives to bring you the most complete picture story of Kennedy's life ever told. And now this collector's video can be yours, free with your paid subscription to Life magazine. You'll get 13 big issues, including 2 special issues, The Year in Pictures and the Fall Special celebrating 500 years of America, all for 4 monthly installments of only $7.97 each. Life magazine is the picture monthly that keeps you in touch with the human side of major events and brings you the colorful, touching, dramatic, and personal stories of important people. Call now and you'll get even more. This valuable booklet, Life in the 60s, a picture log of the Kennedy era, as our special thank you for acting promptly. So call right now and receive 13 great issues of Life, the remarkable Kennedy video, the 2 special issues, and the extra gift, Life in the 60s. Call now.
A mixed picture in the early going on Wall Street this morning. Stuart Varney has that story and more in dollars and cents. Good morning, Stuart.
Good morning to you, Don. Cautious and nervous. That's a pretty good way to describe investor sentiment on Wall Street today. Cautious about taking stocks much higher, nervous about the state of the economy. The Dow opened down about 6 points, recovered, then fell a bit. Right now, the Dow is off 1 point at 32.49. Big board volume is active with 38 million shares traded. Check the broader and secondary markets. They are mixed. Only the over-the-counter composite index now moving higher. Apple computer stock up a quarter at 63 1/8. Microsoft down 1 point at 121.5. The reason for those moves? A $4.3 billion lawsuit. That's how much Apple says Microsoft should pay for stealing some of the graphics used on Apple's Macintosh computers. Microsoft allegedly used Apple technology to make its highly successful Windows software. Microsoft says hard work, not copyright infringement, is what made Windows successful. The battle between Caterpillar and the United Auto Workers Union is getting more intense. Caterpillar says it will allow 6,000 locked-out union workers to come back to their jobs next week. The workers say, no thanks, they'll remain on strike until they get a better contract. Kathleen Behoff reports from Aurora, Illinois.
Hi, how you doing?
This is not a presidential candidate stumping across New Hampshire. It's the head of the United Auto Workers drumming up support to escalate a strike against Caterpillar.
You say escalating it. I guess if you add up the numbers, the same number of people will be outside that was outside before.
About 2,500 workers went on strike November 4th. Days later, Caterpillar locked out nearly 6,000 UAW workers not on strike. But now, the company says it wants to return to the bargaining table, and those locked out can come back to work.
It's time to try some other tactic to see if we can't break things loose.
While the union says it will return to the bargaining table, it is telling the locked-out workers, including these in Aurora, Illinois, to join the picket line.
We're prepared for it. A lot better prepared than the company thought we were.
It's going to be hard. And we knew that when we went into it.
The strike is costing the company many millions every week.
Without a settlement, Caterpillar will continue to run in the red. And the red is going to be probably rather significant, you know, in the $50 to $100 million range per quarter.
To analysts, that is why Caterpillar blinked and why the union is hanging tough. Union leaders say this fight is not just about Caterpillar workers. It's a battle to give a boost to the American labor movement, a movement that has had few victories in recent years. Kathleen Behoff, CNN Business News, Aurora, Illinois.
The energy markets are keeping a close eye on Geneva today. That's where OPEC oil ministers are meeting to discuss ways to get the price of oil up. The ministers all agree production should be cut sharply, but they can't figure out how to divide up the cutbacks. So oil traders watch and wait to see what will happen. And right now, light sweet American crude is up 14 cents a barrel. The quote is 1942. The Dow Jones average still down 1.5 points. That's dollars and cents. In 1/2 hour, we'll have a report on one industry where they're doing lots of hiring. Back to you, Don.
Thank you very much, Stuart. We'll look forward to that report. CNN Headline Sports, however, comes up next.
This is CNN Headline News.
I like a really big, round burger.
And I like them really, really thick.
You're gonna have a baseball.
Smells come up and the juices drip down. I can almost hear it.
By the sound, just by the sound, then I know it's ready.
Whoa.
Wait.
It's not done.
Done. It's done.
No, it's done.
A1. It's how burgers are.
Perfect.
Done.
Antonio, where we predict you'll have the best time every time. For a free vacation kit with valuable discounts, give us a call.
In a year when the world will watch records fall in the 100, the 400, and the 800, we at Federal Express said, hey, let's go for the 4,312, the 6,702, and to top it off, the 8,003.6. So we created Express Freighter, the only service that races from the world's trading centers to every corner of the U.S. by 10:30 next day. In a year of world records, why not set a few of our own? Express Freighter, the fastest thing on Earth.
I'm Jerome Jurenovich, CNN Headline Sports. The Austrians continue to dominate the medal count in Albertville, winning 2 more today by taking the gold and silver behind the Neuner sisters in the luge. Cami Myler with the U.S. best ever 5th place finish. Another Austrian, Petra Kronberger, is in place to bring her country even more gold. She won the downhill portion of the Nordic combined. Krista Schmidinger of Lee, Massachusetts, finished a strong 2nd. Germany with the gold and silver in the men's biathlon. Colorado's Josh Thompson, the top U.S. finish, 32nd. Once again, plenty of hockey from Albertville, coming off Ray LeBlanc's 46 saves in a 2-zip shutout of Germany yesterday. The U.S. is not in action until tomorrow against the Finns. Today, Canada in a walk over Norway. The NBA back in action. The Bulls snapped a mini 2-game skid by pounding New Jersey 133-113. Michael Jordan with 34. The Sixers stopped the Heat. The Hornets knocked off the Hawks. Indiana a winner over Orlando. The Spurs beat Boston. The Lakers too much for the T-Wolves. The Bucks beat Detroit. Utah edged Cleveland. Portland down Denver for its 13th consecutive home win. Seattle shut down the Rockets despite 40 by Olajuwon, and Golden State beat the Bullets. College ball, Seton Hall snapped its 23-game losing skid to Syracuse. Jerry Walker with 17 in the 86-76 final. Also in top 25 action, Georgia upset LSU. In the NHL, Toronto down Detroit, Hartford breezed by Buffalo. Washington by 1 over Quebec, Edmonton edged Minnesota. Brett Hall with his 55th as St. Louis beat LA, and the Islanders doused the Flames. Jerome Jurenovich, CNN Headline Sports.
This is CNN Headline News.
In 1980, an ounce of silver was worth $50. Today, it's worth about $4. This represents a 93% price drop, which could make silver one of the most undervalued commodities in the world right now. James Flanagan, editor of Investor's Edge, says silver is like a time bomb that's ready to explode. He says it's one of the most opportune investment markets in history. Flanagan points out the historical fact: every investment market commodity that has fallen 90% below its high has moved up dramatically. In an exclusive free report, world-renowned economist John Pugsley explains why silver may be the best investment of the 90s and why he expects the price to skyrocket. Pugsley says there are tantalizing clues that silver has hit bottom and is ready to explode. Now is the time to act. Call and discover how you can buy $10,000 worth of silver with just $2,000 down. The report and guide are free, so call now.
An unemployed Phoenix man has a temporary job thanks to some quick action that may have saved a life. Max Byers witnessed a car accident in which the driver was killed, but the car kept going on a busy highway, and a 2-year-old child remained strapped in a car seat. Well, Byers drove in front of the car and let it run into his truck to stop it. He and the child were unhurt. A local radio station rewarded Byers with a temporary job as a weatherman. No trophies for the winners of this year's Mother Hale Caring Awards. Lena Horne and Yoko Ono received special photographs instead. Money usually spent on awards went to buy equipment for Hale House, which cares for babies born addicted to drugs or with AIDS. Count Elizabeth Taylor among those personally affected by the AIDS virus. Her daughter-in-law, Aileen Gady, has it. Gloria Hillard reports.
At the food bank at AIDS Project Los Angeles, some come seeking help, others come to offer it. Sometimes the line between the two is blurred. Aileen Getty bags groceries for someone homebound with AIDS. She works slowly, for the disease has also robbed her of strength, but not of her spirit.
It's a bit rough. It's been a bit rough. You know, I've said something before. I actually sometimes find some peace in that kind of like why me and AIDS. Perhaps there's a really good reason. Perhaps there's a really good reason, and that takes away from the more selfish aspects of my having AIDS. I hope I can help at least one person.
It's not easy coming forward. She's been somewhat frightened of the spotlight most of her life. Her name attracted it, heir to fortune and misfortune. The family name now offers her a forum, a chance to talk about denial and how it invades, like the virus. First the person who has it, and then friends and family.
I've tried to understand the lack of support in most family structures with somebody with AIDS. And once again, I think that is part of the denial system.
New friends bond quickly. There's a certain shorthand spoken.
A friend of mine needed to go to the hospital.
You also speak a lot of goodbyes, too many for someone who is 32. It's not supposed to be that way. There's one goodbye she's especially not ready for.
The fear of leaving my children. That's an issue I don't seem to be able to resolve. And I'm very, very grateful to them. I sometimes have this feeling of, I feel kind of badly because I feel like I need them more than they need me.
A couple of years ago, Getty took up painting. She had a one-woman show. She's given it up.
I only have time for certain things. My time is valuable.
Priceless, even. And Eileen Getty spends it helping others. Gloria Hillard, CNN, Los Angeles.
Now look at what's coming up next on CNN Headline News.
Another candidate enters the 92 presidential race. A call for nuclear powers to take forces off alert and equal under the law, unequal in the classroom.
Those stories and more in just 2 minutes. I'm Don Harrison. Around the world in 30 minutes, this is CNN Headline News.
This is CNN Headline News.
On CNN Headline News today, how you look and where you work. Can your appearance keep you from getting a job? One city says that's discrimination, but will they do something about it? On CNN Headline News today.
Are you finding it harder and harder to get home in time to watch the evening news?
And that's the news. Good night.
What's the rush? Headline News gives you the latest news, business, and sports around the clock.
From CNN, this is Headline News.
No matter your lifestyle, driving habits, or budget, Noble Ford Mercury has a truck for you.
I need a truck that'll take me anywhere I need to go on the farm.
Noble has a truck for you. F-Series pickups are Ford tough and built to last and will beat any deal.
I need an affordable truck to do hauling and pulling.
Noble has a truck for you. The Ford Ranger offers an extra long bed and will beat any deal. Noble Ford Mercury on the Smile Mile in Indianola. We have a truck for you.
So, learned anything today?
Carl Vogel is a plumber.
I don't know.
In the town of Carrollton, Georgia.
We learned about the wall coming down.
A town where TCI recently introduced cable television to the high school.
Dad?
At first, Carl didn't understand what cable television had to do with education.
I think maybe I might want to go to college.
But if you ask him today,
You think that'll be okay? Yeah.
he'd say it's a change for the better.
I think maybe that'll be okay.
CNN Headline News, I'm Don Harrison. Before it was obvious, now it's official. President Bush formally announcing his bid for re-election in Washington this morning. About 1,500 supporters were on hand for that announcement. With his hat officially in the ring, Mr. Bush heads to New Hampshire later today to campaign for next Tuesday's primary there. He says he's determined to win. Mr. Bush told the campaign rally that he came to Washington to do a job, and he intends to finish it.
In 1992, the American people will decide what kind of leadership they want. They'll decide which team has the character, the experience, and the toughness to make the important decisions, and they could cast their lot with a lot of fresh faces who tout stale ideas, but they won't. Voters know the difference between a sound bite and sound policy.
The president's only Republican opponent, Patrick Buchanan, stepping up his attacks on the president. Yesterday, he invited New Hampshire Republican lawmakers to join in his rebellion against Mr. Bush. Today's Boston Herald endorses Buchanan's candidacy, the paper urging Granite State voters to send President Bush a message by voting for Buchanan. The paper says that Mr. Bush has betrayed those who voted for him in 1988. On the Democrat side, former Senator Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts picking up steam moving into the New Hampshire primary election Tuesday. He and his Democratic challenger Bill Clinton have reversed positions over the past week, according to a CNN USA Today Gallup tracking poll. 6 days ago, the Arkansas governor was on top with 37% support. Now he trails Tsongas by 15 points. A dismal economy foremost in the minds of many who'll be casting votes next week in New Hampshire. And Candy Crowley reports they're not sure any candidate really understands how they feel.
For the 7,100 residents of Newmarket, this is the season of their political discontent. Inside Joyce's kitchen, John Burke muses over his coffee about the Democratic presidential slate.
The way you do it now is you put all the pictures on the wall, you take a dot, you close your eyes, you throw it, and whoever hit might be the lucky one.
Business is down at Joyce's. People who used to come for breakfast now come for coffee, or not at all. Joyce's husband, Owen Russell, works at a local high-tech firm. He worries every day he'll lose his job and doesn't think any candidate knows how that feels.
I really don't. They say they do, but let's take some of these politicians and have them take a cut in pay, have them maybe lose a piece of property, come down with the little people. They're making $100,000 a year. They're pretty comfortable.
Vitronics, one of Newmarket's major employers, laid off 35% of its workforce last fall, the first layoffs in the company's history. Vitronics President James Manfield says he'll vote for any candidate most likely to help businesses like his, so he can rehire those he had to fire. Business is good inside Newmarket's only barbershop. Charlie Kennedy says people who are out of jobs need to look nice for interviews. He does a lot of clipping these days and a lot of listening.
From what I hear, anyhow, it's primarily between Tsongas and Clinton, but everybody's up in the air. I think there's more people really don't know what they're going to do next Tuesday.
Charlie himself still wavers between two candidates. He is the personification of what pollsters call voter volatility. It means anything could happen next Tuesday. Off the beaten path, Newmarket has received no visits this year from presidential hopefuls. What they know of the candidates they have read in the papers or seen on TV. And one thing seems crystal clear. Somewhere between here and the campaign trail, the messages of Campaign 92 have failed to resonate. Candy Crowley, CNN, Newmarket, New Hampshire.
Police in Lima, Peru, stepping up security after a series of bomb attacks last night. 2 officers killed outside the U.S. ambassador's residence. 2 were injured. The ambassador not at home at the time. Police are blaming that attack and 6 others throughout the night on leftist rebels, but no one